people that follow you and have discovered you on that kind of kept movies like this.
That's correct.
Being talked about to this day, and may have had a hand in people finally figuring out who owned what and getting this DVD, it was Blu-ray out that you were talking about. But I mean, is that kind of startling to you that it's taken something that sort of grassroots to bring something this massive back to the
Well, you take, like when Roger Ebert started, he was like a lone wolf, basically, with a major daily newspaper, making people conscious of the legacy of world cinema. And I'm often asked, of what value are film festivals? You know, is it just a big booze up? You know, and how do you regard the critics? I regard them, those that are serious, I take them very seriously, because films live because of the critics and film festivals, and now, as you say, the influence of certain critics has gone out into the social network. And you have more than just big city newspaper guys criticizing films. You have people writing appreciations of films, and you're in contact with your fans. The great film directors had no contact with their fans at all, other than to sign an autograph at Chasen's or Romanoff's. But now, I have contact with my fans, and a lot of my fans lobbied to bring Sorcerer back. So this year, I mean, both studios that made this film were sold at least 3 or 4 times since I made the film. And every time someone buys the studio, all the papers, and there are millions and millions of contracts and documents, they go underground and no one knows where they are. And then young lawyers come in, replacing the older guys, and they don't know where to find anything. And so all the documents on Sorcerer were missing until now, and it was a demand created by the public. So by the grace of God, I'm going to go in sometime in May and make a 4K digital copy of this film with the soundtrack free of all noise, the picture free of all dirt and in focus, and the way I first saw it when I looked through the viewfinder. And the first release of it will be at the Venice Film Festival. It'll have its own special evening. And then it's going to be re-released in this country in theaters, and then on Blu-ray, and then streaming, which is what all the studios think is the next big thing. No more DVDs, no more Blu-rays, but streaming. And that's where it's heading. And where it goes after that, I have no idea. But yes, the social network's very important. I mean, there's a lot of idiots on it. You know that. But there are anywhere. Anyway. But there are also serious film lovers, to my amazement. There are actually 2 of them in this room tonight. I can't point them out, but no, but there's been a whole new audience created by critics like yourself and by Roger Ebert. And that's why he is so sorely missed, because he was doing it and doing it and doing it when no one else really was. The other major film critics were writing about the new films, and that was it. That's all they wrote about or cared about. And Roger introduced audiences to the foreign filmmakers and pictures that wouldn't play in this country, but for champions like him and others. So yes, that's a long answer to your question. I pay attention to what my fans write, and I communicate with them when it's serious, you know, when they're asking me or saying something that I find is serious.
If I remember correctly, Roger put this film in his top 10 for the year it came at 77. So he was serious about this movie and his appreciation of it. We will have a little bit more to say about that later.
Okay. I wanted to ask now. If you all bought the book of Friedkin, Friedkin connection.
If you didn't buy that book, get the hell out of here.
And I mean, I've read most of it. And it's a great book. I mean, you gotta read it. Obviously, I was reading some of the sorcerer stuff, and there are a whole lot of fascinating tales in there. I want to know if you could possibly talk through the two most, amazing sequences in the movie. Obviously, the bridge sequence, and then the scene where they're blowing up the tree. And I mean, both of those have incredible stories behind that are almost as incredible as what you're seeing in the film. And I was wondering, for example, if you talk, first of all, with the tree scene. I think that was from what I remember, that was a day that I guess some of the heads of Gulf and Western and Paramount came to visit.
Well, we were in this really desolate jungle, and there was mud and filth all around, and all of a sudden I hear and then see a helicopter descending near our set. And I don't know who the hell it is. And it was Charlie Bludorn, who was the head of Gulf and Western that owned Paramount, that was one of the producers of the film. And he flew in with his assistant, who later became the head of Gulf and Western, a guy named Martin Davis, and with a beautiful blonde woman in a see-through diaphanous dress and high heels. And I told some of my guys, I said, put some boards down, will you guys? And they walked over to the set. And Charlie Bludorn had a very thick Austrian accent. And he shouted out at me, he said, Friedkin, look at this, what is this? What's going on here? And I explained to him, we're gonna blow up that tree. He said, genius. This guy Friedkin is a fucking genius. Look at this. You ever seen anything like this? That's exactly how he talked. He was a billionaire and crazed. And he shows up with this beautiful woman who could not speak English. And so I said, well, you guys better stand over there and give him some headphones. And I had 4 cameras on it. And I gave the signal to blow up the tree. We had loaded it with actual dynamite. And I give the signal, and boom, a few twigs popped out of the back. The explosion didn't work. It was screwed up. And I'm yelling at the crew, and I'm losing my mind. And the next thing I see is the helicopter taking off. No goodbyes, no more genius, no nothing. He was out of there. And they were out of there. And I actually called a friend of mine in New York who was a professional arsonist, who was known as Marvin the Torch. Now, that was not his real name. But nor was his first name Marvin. But he was a guy who turned restaurants and businesses into parking lots all over New York City. And I knew him very well. And I called him up, and I got his wife on the phone, and we used to call his wife Mrs. Torch. And I'd say, Mrs. Torch, how are you? She said, what do you want? I said, can I speak to Marvin? And she said, my Marvin doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't do that stuff anymore. And I said, no, Mrs. Torch, I'm not asking him to blow up anything for real. This is for a movie. Anyway, he came down, he was in the beauty supply business in Queens, New York. And in a theater this size, if every chair was filled, he would be among the last 3 people that you would suspect of being Marvin the Torch. And he came down to the Dominican Republic, where we shot that tree, with his bags of beauty supplies, which is what he used for explosives. Got them on an airplane, beauty supplies, you know. And he came down there and he rigged the tree. And he didn't even wait to see it. He just said, you're all set, kid. and I got the crew up again. My special effects men were standing back, waiting to see what this guy could do. I gave the signal, and it's what you see in the film. The tree went away, as did many businesses in New York City for many, many years. And this guy never got caught. Didn't look like an arsonist, didn't act like one, but he was good. Boy, he was good.
Now, if the
Uncredited?
rumor is true, Blue Thorn and I believe the rest of the Gulf and Western Board of Directors do make a sort of a cameo appearance in the film, kind of.
Yeah, in the office of the head of the oil company, the American Imperialist Oil Company, I used the photo of the board of Gulf and Western with Blue Thorn and all. And when they saw a screening of it, they went crazy. They just freaked out. You know, if I was in the room, Blue Thorn would have tried to choke me.
Well, because you're filming in the Dominican Republic, and they had big, huge holdings at that time, I believe, didn't they?
They owned the Dominican Republic. They owned it. They owned all the sugar producers, and they owned the sugar refinery. And they were paying off the president, you know, so they could do whatever they want in the DR. I filmed the bridge sequence and many of the other scenes in Tuxtepec, Mexico, though,
Well, the bridge
which is
sequence, that's all.
south of Veracruz.
Well, the bridge sequence, that's a whole other epic story. Because you start that, I think, in Dominican Republic.
We built it in a